The story begins during World War II. A Japanese businessman named Saito was being sent back to Japan along with some other captives where he was to be forced into slavery. Saito was kept alone, farthest from the others. Soon, 2 guards escorted him to the ship's commander. The commander looked at him with hateful eyes and said that treason against one's country is unforgivable. However, the death penalty would be too easy for you. It's not enough for the crime you've committed. Just then, some other soldiers dragged in another prisoner named Bronson. Bronson was from Britain and harbored deep hatred for the Japanese people. The commander then revealed his plan. For the rest of their lives, the 2 of them would remain chained together. The soldiers stepped forward and shackled their ankles together. Bronson cried out, "Kill me! Just don't chain me to a Japanese man." But no one listened. It seemed this was their fate. However, the ship was suddenly attacked by enemy forces, and all the captive soldiers on board began a revolt. Bronson and Sato took advantage of the situation, escaped, and fought alongside the rebellious soldiers. A submarine approached the ship and fired a missile at it. Only the officers and the 2 prisoners remained in the cabin. The commanding officer pulled out a gun to shoot them, but Bronson quickly grabbed Saito, and both leaped into the sea just before the entire ship exploded. A few hours later, Bronson managed to swim, dragging Saito with him to a deserted island. As soon as they reached the shore, he collapsed unconscious. The next day, Saito awoke, thinking it was all a bad dream. But when he saw the chain on his ankle, he faced the truth. He tried to wake Bronson, but he remained unconscious. He found the body of a soldier who had washed ashore nearby, and Saito took his gun. He contemplated shooting Bronson to free himself, but Bronson suddenly woke up and attacked him. A fierce fight ensued between them. As they wrestled near the seashore, a terrifying shriek echoed from the water. Bronson tried to push Saito into the sea, but blood from Saito's wounded ankle began to flow, attracting the unknown creature toward them. The creature violently yanked Bronson and attacked him with sharp claws and lightning speed. Saito immediately raised the gun, aiming first at Bronson, but instead of shooting Bronson, he shot the creature. The beast recoiled and vanished into the water. Bronson was now wounded. Both realized that something far more dangerous than their mutual enmity was present on this island. They made a truce to survive. A little distance from the beach, Bronson asked what the creature was. Since they spoke different languages, Saito merely pretended to understand, but his face clearly showed he knew what he had just witnessed. Saito remained silent for a while, wondering how to escape. Finally, despairing, he accepted that death was inevitable here. But Bronson immediately stopped him, saying, "Are you crazy?" He then took out his last bullet, gave it to Saito, and said they would have to fight the creature that was hunting them together. The 2 found some supplies that had washed ashore. Bronson found a packet of cigarettes and offered one to Saito, but Saito refused, his eyes reflecting sadness. While Bronson was searching for useful supplies, he found the body of a young soldier, his own comrade. He broke down, crying that he was just a young boy with his whole life ahead of him. He lamented that he would be alive if those damn Japanese hadn't started this war. Although Saito couldn't understand a single word, he fully felt his pain. He offered Bronson water. Bronson drank it, and the 2 began to gather more things for the night. When darkness fell, they built a makeshift camp together. Bronson tried to put on his shoe, but the chain caused him pain, and he couldn't wear it. Saito then realized he had taken a dead soldier's oversized boots, and he offered one to Bronson. But Bronson outright refused to wear it, as he didn't want to touch anything Japanese. Saito caught some crabs and offered them to his new companion. Bronson, who hadn't eaten for days, hesitated at first, but then took the food. However, the crab slipped from his hands into the dirt. Seeing this, Saito offered him his own crab. Bronson initially refused, but Saito insisted and placed the crab near him. Bronson was starving. As soon as he tasted the crab, he loved it. Slowly, the two began to open up to each other a little. Bronson started talking clearly about himself, and Saito was able to understand some parts. He even learned to say Bronson's name. Then he introduced himself. "My name is Saito." Bronson asked what they should do about the chains. Saito remained silent. Later, Bronson fashioned a tool to try and cut the chain. He tried, but failed. Then, Saito pointed his foot towards a weak link in the chain and said something in Japanese. Bronson didn't understand, but seeing his gesture, he considered trying it. Saito encouraged him, and after 2 blows, the chain loosened. Now it was Bronson's turn, and Saito asked for the tool. Bronson was a little apprehensive, but trusted him nonetheless. As Saito started hitting the chain near Bronson's ankle, Bronson said, "Brother, I can't watch. I'm covering my eyes." Hearing this, Saito laughed. With a single blow, he set Bronson free. Bronson was overjoyed that he hadn't lost his foot, and the two celebrated happily. But their noise attracted the attention of something lurking in the darkness. Saito felt something was approaching, and both became alert. However, the creature soon disappeared. Both grabbed their weapons and went to look for evidence. Saito found some tracks in the sand and began a small investigation. Just then, a voice caught his attention. When they turned around, they saw it was 2 Japanese soldiers, along with a captive. Bronson suspected Saito might abandon him now. But to show Bronson he could trust him, Saito handed him his weapon and told him to hide quickly. Saito stayed put and saw that food was boiling. A soldier smelled something and went to investigate, where he thought someone was sleeping in the camp. Saito came forward and told him not to shoot. Bronson watched all this from afar. The soldiers didn't know Saito had been declared a traitor, so they began to trust him. But Bronson didn't know that the real danger was right behind him. In the camp, Saito asked his old comrades if anyone else had survived. The man replied that only they were left because they had been wearing life jackets. Everyone else had drowned. Bronson realized a little late that the sea creature was behind him. He was so terrified, he didn't know what to do, and finally closed his eyes. But when he opened them again, he saw that the frightening animal had disappeared. The Japanese soldiers were now questioning Saito, asking if he was absolutely sure there was no one else there. Saito said he was alone, but the soldiers grew suspicious because they found some clues suggesting Bronson's presence. One soldier stood up with his sword, saying, "Before the ship sank, a rumor spread that a traitor and an enemy had been chained together. When they removed the cloth from Saito's ankle, they understood that Saito was a traitor." The other soldier asked him where the fugitive was. Saito said he was dead and pointed to a grave where they had buried Bronson's friend. A Japanese soldier said that Saito was not only a traitor but a liar and threatened to cut his throat if he didn't tell the truth. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoed across the island, and everyone froze. The other captive present cried out in fear that whatever this creature was, it wasn't human. He fell to his knees, praying for his safety. A soldier told the youngest one to go see what the sound was. He approached Bronson. Bronson stepped on a dry tree branch, which made a noise. The soldier started advancing towards him, but hearing the animal's growl, he ran in the other direction. The soldier ran through the jungle path to the cave entrance and went inside. He didn't know that the creature was hidden among the rocks of the entrance itself. Meanwhile, Bronson tried to save his friend. Inside the cave, the creature came out from behind the soldier. The soldier turned and struck it with his sword. But the creature instantly broke the soldier's arm. His scream echoed across the island. The second soldier thought this happened because of Saito, so he went to kill him. But Bronson struck and killed that soldier instead. Just as Bronson was about to shoot him, the creature ripped off the soldier's head and threw it at them, letting out a terrifying shriek. Both ran to hide. The creature approached the wounded soldier and finished him off entirely. The other captive also ran, but the creature pounced on him and killed him too. Bronson and Saito watched all this from afar. They decided they had to leave, but the creature saw them too and started chasing them. Both ran toward the jungle, with Saito clearing the path with his machete. Bronson said he had a plan and they should stop, but Saito didn't understand his language and kept going. Bronson stumbled and fell behind, and the creature immediately reached him. Panicked, Bronson fired his gun but missed. His last bullet was wasted. The creature grabbed Bronson's throat and raised its claw to kill him. But Saito suddenly came back and attacked the creature, freeing Bronson. Taking advantage of the moment, the two fled, but slipped down a slope, both getting severely injured and wounded. The next day, both were very badly hurt. When their eyes opened, Saito saw a sharp object stuck in his chest. With intense pain, he struggled to get up and remove the sharp object. At that time, Bronson was lying on a rotten piece of wood, hanging over the edge of a waterfall. When he tried to move, the wood swung, and despite trying to balance, Bronson slipped, hit a rock below, and fell into the water. Underwater, he had flashbacks of the first attack, and he struggled to swim, eventually reaching the shore somehow. Saito found the dead soldier's katana on the other side. Now separated, both walked alongside the river. From above the waterfall, the creature let out a chilling shriek that echoed through the jungle. Both of them heard the scream. They became alert, and Saito, who was drinking water from the river, stopped and went to look for his friend. Bronson kept climbing alone until he reached a large waterfall that blocked his path. He still decided to somehow proceed. Evening was approaching, and the two were still separated. Saito was now trying to get out from the riverbank, but despite all his efforts, he couldn't find Bronson. Meanwhile, Bronson reached the waterfall and decided to rest for a bit, but he started hearing some nearby noises. Saito was still wandering in the jungle. Hearing those noises, he became alert. Bronson finally emerged from the deep part and sat on the bank. But instantly, he felt a presence next to him. When he turned to look, there was a large crocodile. Having no choice, he lay still and quiet without moving. The crocodile just stared, and then returned to the water. Bronson was still scared. He quietly got up and started walking. He was about to reach the top of the waterfall when he slipped, and at that moment, he saw the creature, which was now applying something to the wound Saito had inflicted. Bronson realized that this was not a foolish animal. It could think, could heal its wounds, and now he was trying to figure out how to tell Saito this. But he accidentally made a noise and then tried to sneak out, hiding. He watched in hiding as the creature went to the riverbank. Suddenly, the same crocodile attacked the creature and dragged it away. The water instantly turned red, and for a while the crocodile struggled to breathe. Then the creature emerged from the water and tore it into two pieces. Bronson was even more terrified seeing this. The creature let out another extremely sharp shriek, which reached Saito on the other side. Bronson immediately fled. Saito was still searching for him in the jungle. A little later, Saito suddenly saw something strange. He went closer and saw a corpse tied to a tree. Seeing this, he was extremely frightened and stumbled into a hole. Inside the hole, Saito found the head of another similar creature. He stared at the sight for a while and then realized it was dead. With a new hope, he decided to climb out and look for useful items near the corpse. He found a gun in the corpse's hand, and seeing the empty shell casings on the ground, he realized this man must have killed that creature. Saito then picked up the gun. Now he had a katana and a pistol, so he decided he would also hunt the creature. On the way, he found the wreckage of a broken plane and waded into the water to reach it. When he went inside the half-submerged plane, he saw something. During this time, Bronson also found another piece of the plane's wreckage and reached the same plane. Before entering the plane, he made a makeshift weapon from some scraps of metal. Then he went inside the plane and found a flare gun, a lighter, cigarettes, and some other things. But one thing caught his eye. In an attempt to grab it, he slipped and saw something stuck in the plane's wing. When he looked closely, he realized it was a bomb. Seeing this bomb, he got an idea. Bronson then rested for a while and lit a cigarette. While smoking, he heard footsteps. When he turned around, Saito was standing there. Bronson asked him why he was trembling and handed him a cigarette. Saito refused and said he had something important to show. Bronson didn't understand, so Saito used his lighter to try to explain. Both went together to a cave, and once there, Saito pointed to a strange sight. They saw that a female of the species was incubating another egg. Bronson slowly approached her, but Saito warned him, "This is a female. Stay away from it. They become very dangerous to protect their home and children." But Bronson said he wouldn't leave here without killing it. Saito tried to explain that if they killed a female, the rest of the creatures would become much more dangerous. They would finish them off at any cost, but Bronson said, "Either they live or we do." He had an idea and asked Saito to go with him. Then Bronson showed Saito the bomb he had found in the plane and asked him to help take it to the monster's home. With great difficulty, the two carried the bomb there. Upon reaching, they saw that the trigger was bent. Bronson tried to fix it, but Saito said, "Let's get out of here quickly. It could explode at any moment." Meanwhile, the female was returning to her cave. Bronson said there was an emergency hammer in the plane. It might be useful, but one of them would have to stay there to activate the bomb. Saito sadly said that they were here because of him, and he agreed to stay. But just then, they heard the female's roar. Both decided to leave. Bronson lit a flare so they could see in the dark. While Saito was on guard, Bronson tried to pull out the hammer, but the hammer was stuck and required a lot of strength to pull out. Suddenly, a monster appeared in front of Saito, and Saito was immediately ready to fight. A fierce fight ensued between the two, and the creature fought very skillfully and intelligently. Finally, Bronson managed to pull the hammer out of the plane. Saito bravely faced the monster and pushed it towards the plane. Bronson got a chance to strike several times with the hammer. Both engaged in the fight with the creature and even pinned it in a corner for a while. But when they looked up at the sky, they saw the flare slowly dimming. Then, when they looked ahead, the creature had vanished. Both quickly returned to the cave to complete their work. Saito once again stood guard, while Bronson tried to fix the bomb's latch. As soon as Bronson fixed the latch, the creature attacked from behind. But Saito immediately stabbed the creature in the chest. Just as he was preparing to cut its head off, the creature slammed him against the wall, then attacked Bronson again, severely wounding him with a fierce blow. Saito somehow gathered his courage, got up, picked up his weapon, and shot the creature in the eye with a single pull of the trigger. The monster then released Bronson. Saito fired again, but missed. So he changed his target and shot the creature's egg. The egg exploded, and one of the female's babies fell to the ground, which enraged the female. Saito rushed to help his friend, but Bronson was severely wounded. Bronson gave all his belongings to Saito and told him to get out quickly. As the female sat cradling her baby, Saito was in pain, but reluctantly, he left his friend and fled the cave. Then the female approached Bronson. Bronson immediately activated the bomb. Bronson started the countdown, but when he reached 3, the bomb didn't explode. Then he remembered his friend Saito's words. He activated the bomb the way Saito had told him, and there was a huge explosion, which Saito saw from afar. Losing his friend, Saito became very sad. Then he heard the same terrifying shriek and realized the creature was still alive. He started running through the bushes, and the female was also running through the jungle, chasing him. Saito reached the seashore and fell to his knees in despair. But then he remembered his friend's sacrifice and angrily decided to fight. As the female reached the shore and saw someone sitting on their knees in front of her, she pounced on him in an instant. But it was a trap. Saito rose from the sand and stood before the creature. He struck the creature, but was also wounded himself. He didn't give up and stood up again to face the creature. He provoked the female, saying, "I killed your baby, didn't I? Come on." As she attacked Saito, Saito slashed her stomach, and the female fell to the ground. He went to the weakened female, leaned over her, and drew his sword. But instead of killing her, he plunged the sword into the ground near her and stepped back a few paces to pick up a flare gun. Just then, some other noises came from the jungle, and he started moving toward the seashore. There he tried to light a fire, but the flare was broken. Now his last hope was gone. An exhausted and defeated Saito collapsed onto the sand, unconscious. A few hours later, Saito woke up on an American ship where an officer was questioning him. A Japanese translator was also present. The officer asked if Bronson had helped him, but Saito remained silent. Then the officer told the translator to ask him what he had done. What was his crime? Saito replied, "I killed my own commander because he was needlessly pushing all my comrades towards death." The officer again spoke about Bronson, and Saito was flooded with memories of the time spent with him. By the end, the two had become true friends. The officer asked if anyone else was alive on the island. Saito said no one was left there. Then he looked out the ship's window. As their ship sailed away from the shore, it became clear that many other such creatures were still alive there, and the island would remain under their rule.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.